So very purpose of our life, individual human being, as much as you can serve other. That's the real purpose of our life. So my daily practice, my physical, speech, mind, dedicated for well-being of other. That's real meaning of Dharma, isn't it? And 1,000-year-old India's tradition, ahimsa, karuna. So I'm student of ancient Indian tradition. Since childhood, I study. According to our tradition, you see, at very young age, we learned those root texts, memorize. Then explanation, each word. Then also, we extensively use logical investigation. That's very good. I want to share my Indian friend, including those old people. You should study ancient Indian logic. Wonderful, really wonderful. So this ancient Indian sort of tradition, as a student of Nalanda tradition, I really found very, very helpful to keep peace of mind. Okay. So then some question.
Good morning. I have a question about, is it necessary to be shrewd in business to be successful, or you can be simple in business to be successful? Because shrewd. Because, yeah.
Under certain circumstances, maybe yes. But overall, I think honest. You see, honest brings trust from other. So as a result, you get more friend. We social animal, our very life based on human friendship. Too much truth. Then less and less people trust you. So everybody then say, oh, be careful, that person, quite sophisticated. Oh. Yes.
Pranam, Your Holiness. I have come from Madhya Pradesh, and I have a very simple question. What is your message for the next generation children who are too well provided and have always gone astray?
Recently, we have a big international meeting in Delhi.
Social, emotional, and ethical learning. The meeting was on social, emotional, and ethical learning.
So now more and more people really showing, I think, realize in our education, the one subject, moral ethics, very important. Previously, I think not much talk that, and people consider education field, the moral things are not much relevant. Now, more and more people showing. It's quite simple. in order to create more peaceful society, very much related with moral principle. So that if we relying moral teaching only for religious side, not adequate. So the education field, these days I am sort of expressing in education, from kindergarten, you see the one subject, hygiene of physical, there. Now similarly, from kindergarten up to university level, we need hygiene of emotion. That's important. So sometimes it seems, as you mentioned, more educated people, more shrewd. And I think global level, most of the troublemaker, good education. Isn't it?
Yes.
I think those sort of villagers, simple people, not much trouble, not much create trouble. So most of the troublemaker is good education, smart brain, but lacking moral principle. So now education field should include the education about how to keep peace of mind, how to tackle on destructive emotion, not like religion. It's simply a question of our health, mental health. At the global level, we need that through education, not through temple, not through preaching. Sometimes, unfortunately, some great lamas also use sometimes. I think one Haryana, one lama, now in prison, isn't it? So, and then unfortunately, because lack of moral principle or lack of sort of conviction about compassion, then religion itself becoming troublemaker. Religion divide more seriously. Now these days, India, I think comparatively, I think religious harmony, wonderful, really wonderful. But just your next door neighbor, Afghanistan, Shia, Sunni, fighting, and Syria in this area. It's a follower of same teacher, Muhammad, and same sort of God, Allah, but killing each other. How bad? Now, recently in Sri Lanka, very sad, and Bangladesh. So sometimes religion, without combine real teaching of religion, that is compassion. Without that, religion also creates more trouble. Isn't it? Yes, next question.
Sir, sometimes it so happens in life that you're surrounded with lots and lots of problems from every aspect, and you start losing faith in yourself and in God. So how should we regenerate the faith in life and in God? What shall one do in times of, struggles and mishappenings and difficulties?
Kasa. Kare. That's why now we should pay more attention about education, how to bring next generation education plus moral principle. That's very important. India, the British imperialist, I feel one way is that they really help technology or these things. But one way, they introduce modern education, so-called modern education. In the West, about moral principle, only religion, just faith. God, 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 like that. This country, over 3,000 years, is the concept of shamatha, single-pointed mind, and analytical meditation, vipassana. These are the method to tackle our emotion. These teachings available only in this country, no other country. Although I respect all major religious traditions, as a people who believe God as a creator, good, wonderful, and God as our Father. So all 7 billion human beings, one Father, God. So from you also seriously believe that this entire 7 billion human beings are truly brothers, sisters. Then you see, how can brothers, sisters killing each other? So that also is wonderful. But only this country, over 3,000 years, already developed a training of mind. Like Jainism, Buddhism, and also once part Sankhya philosophy, no God, no creator. Strictly speaking, we are quite atheist. So therefore, naturally, Jainism, one part of Sankhyaism, and later Buddhism. Now, you see, training of our emotion. So Karuna, all religions accept, very important. But Karuna, other theistic religion, through faith to God. Indian tradition, through training of our mind. So, Indian tradition, I think very scientific. And for example, the concept of ahimsa, non-violence, very sort of relevant in today's world. Nothing to do with religion. And then Karuna. So, India, I think great civilization. Of course, I'm student of Nalanda tradition. From childhood, we study. So my view, a little bit because of prejudice, right? So sometimes I used to teasing my Indian friend, this physical, not Indian, Tibetan, but my mind, I'm more Indian than these modern Indian, more Western educated people. You through Western education, more materialistic sort of thinking, materialistic life. So, that's now my latest commitment. Now, later part of my life, now 84-year-old. Latest my commitment is I'm trying to make contribution as much as I can. Revival of ancient Indian knowledge about mind, about emotion. Then this country, India, is the only nation who have the ability to combine modern education, modern technology, modern science, plus peace of mind through training of our mind. So that's my latest commitment. And we have some sort of resources among Tibetan refugees, about 10,000 monk students and a few thousand nuns who study these ancient knowledge. In Tibet, previously, 20 to 30 years. Now in India, 20 years. So, you see, these people can make some contribution. Okay.
Yes, hi, good morning. I have a question. In Indian society, we do a lot of treatments to treat evil eye or buri nazar. So is it a reality or a myth?
Karsa? Evil. Correct. Correct. I think that is superstition. I think I'm you see, I usually describe this person half scientist, half Buddhist. So therefore, you see, we should know, we should think scientific way, not superstition way. When I was young, the companion, sometimes they teasing me, or there is some demon, in particular in Potala, some dark room. So when I passing through such area, I feel some something
like the hair standing up.
Actually, nothing. So we should be more scientific minded. In village, sometimes you see this kind of 1,000-year-old sort of certain tradition or superstition. That outdated. Next.
What is the exact definition of enlightenment? And can we achieve enlightenment within being in the family, or we need to, take a break and come into the different world of...
No. Enlightenment, see different, or say the kasurda, munzijda.
No, there are different ways of actually identifying what enlightenment means.
So, according Buddhism, basic our mind is pure. Mind, there are different level of mind. Sensory level, consciousness, combine that very, very grosser level of consciousness. That consciousness almost like slave of sensorial consciousness. So modern materialistic life, almost like a slave of eye consciousness, air consciousness. So we see there's some kind of sports. We very much enjoy. And music. So that person lacking how to develop inner peace without relying on sensorial experiences. So for this reason, it is important to make distinction, grosser level of consciousness and more subtle level of consciousness. That is when we are dreaming. The sensorial consciousness no longer working. So one deeper level of mental consciousness there. Then the deepest mental consciousness at the time of death or coma. So through meditation, we can make distinction, grosser level of consciousness and a subtle level of consciousness. So now that subtle level of consciousness, no beginning, no end, according to Sangha philosophy and Jain philosophy and Buddhist philosophy. So now that subtle level of consciousness not polluted level.
It's not polluted in its own intrinsic nature.
So then, firstly, we pay more attention about a subtle level of consciousness, not the sensorial level. Then gradually, you gain some deeper experience. That deeper level of consciousness is not connected with emotion. So more or less pure. So now through meditation, you see that level of consciousness, familiarize yourself and then try to meditate on it. Then eventually all destructive emotion we call all destructive emotion based on kasa, maribwa.
No, then ignorance.
Ignorance. So the pure mind not based on ignorance. So we can make distinction. If we put may sort of effort to realize the subtle level of consciousness, and it is basically pure. So through that way, gradually, grosser level of mind, which very much sort of polluted by ignorance, then reduce or gradually. For that reason, now here, you see, Hinduism and non-Buddhism, or India tradition, and then Buddhism, now here, all non-Buddhist tradition believe Atma. It's quite useful to explain previous life, this life to next life. So that's very useful. Sometimes I also use, you see, that concept of Atma. But from Buddhist viewpoint, Atma, the definition of Atma is something separate from this body and mind and independent, absolute. That kind of Atma, we do not believe. So one time in South India, a great sadhu, who also is very, very was helpful to education, student, 1,000 students. So he invited, and we become close friend. And then so we have the Hindus, Buddhists, practice of Shila. You understand Shila?
Ethical morality.
And practice of Shamatha. And practice of Vipassana. Same. So difference is, you believe Atma, I do not believe Atma. That's our private business. I told him like that. So therefore, Buddhist concept, like similar, that of quantum physics, investigate, nothing exists as appears. According to quantum physicists, you see, nothing exists as appears. Appears from objectively exist. If you investigate, nothing. So this is similar that of Madhyamika philosophy. Nothing exists objectively. So that, I think we need a lot of explanation and too complicated.
Sir, you have inspired lives of so many. So can you please share who is your role model or who is your inspiration?
Karsa. Kare. In modern time, of course, I never met, but Mahatma Gandhiji, great saint, but very practical, wonderful. He introduced, firstly in India, ahimsa, non-violent struggle. And eventually, like South Africa, Nelson Mandela totally follow Mahatma Gandhiji's theory. And then, Karsa America, Martin Luther King, also totally. So India, I think, I really feel in previous century, headed by Mahatma Gandhiji, there are many great Indian, propagate about ahimsa. Now, modern India, you should follow that responsibility to promote ahimsa. Eventually, actually, world need ahimsa. Look how many people daily killed. At this very moment, we enjoy peaceful. But same planet, same human being. How many killed? And then some people, see, they consider weapon is source of making money. Totally wrong. Very purpose of weapon is killing. So eventually, world should be combined non-violence. I think world should be the demilitarized world. That's very important. Possible. Look, realistically speaking, look, many problems. They concerned people, they believe use violence, they can solve the problem. But that completely failed, completely wrong. Only thing is, respect other as a human brother, sister, and talk, and try to find mutually agreeable solution. That's the only way. So the very strong concept of we and they And then you see violence, you see come. And actually, the 7 billion human beings, we are same human community. So therefore, now they using weapon is totally wrong method to solve problem, I feel. Okay. Of course, take time.
Let's take the last 2 questions, maybe.
How do we train our mind to learn these ancient Indian philosophies, or where do we take our kids to understand these concepts? Because we have been spoiled by this Western education, and we have no clue how to achieve this enlightenment.
Karsa. Recently, in Delhi city, some program now start. And then also, you see, recently, as I mentioned earlier, international sort of
launch. There was an international launch of Sila.
So now, some movement now coming. So now, we should help to this movement as much as we can. I think through education, human being or world, I think can be more peaceful, more compassionate world. But take time. So I'm not expecting I will see such big change of humanity. But those young people, you have some hope. Well, yes, yeah. If you make some effort, then after 20 years, 30 years, I think through education, world can be more compassionate. Compassionate means more realistic way. Okay.
So,
good morning, sir. Yes. In life, we all been through a lot of obstacles and difficulties. What do you tell yourself to overcome all of those? And also the barrier between being good and being bad is pretty much not really clear. Then how do you actually keep yourself standing on a good side? And before you help us to answer the questions, I represent all the Vietnamese people here to wish you all the best wishes. We hope that you will live a long life to help all the people around the world, and also we would love to see you in Vietnam one day. Thank you.
Vietnamese way. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now some Russian. Yes? Few questions from Russian. Ka?
Vietnam.
Chogado. Vietnam is traditionally Buddhist country. And within Buddhism, we are follower of a Nalanda tradition. The Nalanda tradition, unlike Pali tradition believe what Buddha says. Nalanda tradition, even Buddha stated, we have the right to investigate. So here, science, modern science, and Nalanda tradition can go together. So now important, I always say, express, study Buddha Dharma, study. Particularly Buddhist philosophy, study, very important. Our just faith. Buddham Shanam Gajami, Dhammam Shanam Gajami, Sangam Shanam Gajami, without knowing, not much meaning. So, our Vietnamese brothers, sisters, of course, from time to time, I have opportunity meeting some Vietnamese Buddhists. I always telling the study. I think main differences, Buddhism and other tradition, is not faith, but philosophy. So that we should study. Very important. Okay, next.
His Holiness, we are the Russian group here from different education and level, and we would like to learn how to manage our emotions, how to use that instruments that Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist science have to use it in our own life and to help others. But what do you think? Is it possible for us, people of other tradition, not Buddhist, to learn these instruments of meditation and to managing of emotions? Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, in Buddhism, general, particularly Nalanda tradition, very much similar that of scientific thinking. So the modern people, like Russian, see, study, because of comparative way, combine
Comparative.
modern science and Buddhist certain concept can go very well. As now I mentioned quantum physics, our concept is much more wider than modern quantum physicists. Like that. So you can study combinedly. And then recently I met some Russian Moscow universities, some professors. You see, they showing genuine interest, and we already have some project to study about the human mind. So these are wonderful. And after all, Russia, in Russia, Kalmykia, Buryat, Tuva, you see, these Russian Republic, through centuries, Buddhist. And particularly, you see, these area, the Buddhist tradition, from Tibet. So, for example, when I was in Tibet, the number of great scholars of Russian. So we have some very close connection. Now important is study. I hope, like under the Moscow University.
Moscow State University.
Moscow
State University.
Moscow State University, showing some interest. So eventually, I think they already sort of showing interest, some small center in Bangalore. So now similarly in one of the university in Moscow, I think gradually should create a class for Buddhist philosophy study and Buddhist psychology. So not as a religion, but as an academic subject. That I think historically some link there, and now in a modern time is quite useful. I really feel today's world, as I mentioned earlier, problem here, psychology, quite serious. So the only way is through education, how to tackle our emotion. And in order to do that, we should have fuller knowledge about the whole map of emotion. That's not just, you see, a few page prayer, not help. At least, I think, you should sort of study these things. So, I think among the different religious traditions, ancient Indian tradition, lot of idea about our mind, emotion. Therefore, shamatha, vipassana, practice these things, develop. But now, as I mentioned earlier, modern Indian forget these things. So now you should revive these ancient yoga knowledge. It is very possible now in this country. The ancient yoga knowledge about mind, about emotion, as an academic subject, not religious subject. Then combined with modern education, India can do. No other country difficult. But Russia, perhaps, is traditionally large number of Buddhists there, so you can do. And Vietnamese also. The Buddhism is not alien, your own tradition. Okay. Thank you.